Canon USA will be raising the prices of their cameras and lenses in the next few weeks. The main culprit? Tariffs. How much will prices go up? Which goods will be affected? And will this be limited to the United States? Or will we see prices go up in the rest of the Americas, Europe, or even Asia? And what about Nikon, Panasonic, Fuji, and Sony? Will they also raise their prices? Well, I'll break it down for you in just a moment. But if you're serious about staying up to date on the latest camera gear, make sure to subscribe. It not only helps this channel grow, but it keeps you in the loop. Well, the Canon EOS R5 Mark II is $39.99 along with a free battery grip, and the R5 Mark I is $29.99, also on sale along with many other Canon products. Canon USA is expected to raise their prices, and soon. We've been told that Canon USA will be raising their MSRP on products across the entire line of consumer products. How much prices will go up, well, is unknown at this time, but with the possibility of price increases coming sometime in the next 2 weeks, we won't have long to wait. We're first going to take a look at the impact of these tariffs on US pricing. Then we'll take a look at the rest of the Americas, as well as Europe and Asia. And if you happen to think, John, that you're going to escape the brunt of these tariffs, well, multiple case studies show otherwise. As the United States has made clear, there is currently a 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs. And in the case of Japan, that's a 24% tariff that's being delayed. But that 10% tariff is still in play. So if you live in the United States, you can expect the price of camera gear to go up, well, about 10%. And that's just a conservative estimate. There's other variables, environmental factors, that could have the price go up by less than 10% or more than 10%. So taking a look at the Canon EOS R5 Mark II that first launched for $42.99, it's currently $39.99, and that includes a free battery grip. So if Canon passed on that 10% tariff, the Canon EOS R5 Mark II would go up to $43.99, $100 more than its release price back in August. But that's the United States, and whether you're buying an R5 Mark II, an R6, any of Canon's cameras, lenses, or even accessories, estimating a 10% increase at this point, well, it makes sense, because keep in mind that tariff, well, it was put in place on April the 5th. But what if you don't live in the United States? Well, let's take a look at the Americas. And that 10% tariff is still in play. So if we take a look at the Canon EOS R5 Mark II, currently $39.99, and at B&H they're throwing in a free battery grip. Atomos is throwing in something else. I think it's a memory storage card. So let's focus on the price, $39.99. That's $300 less than the announcement price. Taking into effect a 10% increase in price due to the tariff, we could expect to see the new price of the Canon EOS R5 Mark II at not $42.99, but $43.99. And no idea if it's going to still include a free battery grip at B&H or Adorama. So if you're on the fence about getting the Canon EOS R5 Mark II, or even the Mark I, or perhaps some new lenses and camera bodies, a lot of them are on sale, and I've got about 20 or 30 links in the description down below. And if you use those links, it really does help this channel, because I get anywhere from 2 to 5% back. So take a look at those sales, because the prices are likely to go up according to Canon rumors before the month is out. But what about the rest of the Americas, Europe, and Asia? Canon USA is responsible for not just the United States, but all of the Americas. They've got offices in Canada, Brazil, Panama, and Chile. And when I say Canon USA is responsible for all of the Americas, it's responsible for the brand, the marketing, and the economic, how shall we say, prosperity of the company. So if cameras being imported from Japan into the United States are faced with a 10% tariff, and according to what's on the books in terms of legislation, well, this isn't legislation, this is executive orders. But if they still stand, which at the time of recording they do, well, that means that anything being brought into the country is facing a 10% tariff. And that executive order went into effect on, April the 5th. So that's, about 9 days ago. So what's likely to happen is you're going to expect to see prices go up in the United States. But because Canon USA is responsible for the economic well-being of the Americas, it could share that, how shall we say, responsibility of the tariff amongst not just the United States, but Canada, Colombia, Mexico, Brazil, the entire Americas. So if you're living in those countries, I wouldn't expect those tariffs to, well, I wouldn't be smiling thinking, ha 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 ha, we're not going to have to pay those tariffs, because I'm willing to think we are. Canon is headquartered in Japan, where they design the cameras, they fabricate, they build, they're responsible for regional distribution and setting the minimum Japanese price based on fixed and variable costs, and influence the price of other regions. So does this mean then that if you're living in Europe and Asia, you're not going to have to pay any increase in the next couple of weeks? Well, not exactly. As part of a global pricing strategy, Canon may adjust prices globally to maintain consistency and profitability across all the regions. In previous videos where I talked about tariffs and potential price increases, I mentioned that the United States is one of the biggest markets in the world, not just for cameras, but for everything. Well, I looked up the statistic. Believe it or not, for Canon, and I'm talking globally, the United States represents 25% of the, is it profits or sales? Let me take a look. Global sales. So the US market represents 25% of global sales. So a 10% tariff being absorbed by Canon USA, that could have a big impact on Canon sales globally. Even a slight decrease of, let's say, 5 or 10% is going to hurt quarterly earnings. It's going to hurt annual earnings. And that's going to be felt. And what do companies not like to do? Well, they don't like to absorb losses. Canon might decide to do is, facing a loss in revenue in the United States, they might decide to raise prices globally. But that faces other potential challenges, because on April the 5th, the United States didn't just implement a 10% baseline tariff on Japan, but on all countries around the world, including an island with penguins. The only exception? Canada and the United States. And if you think they're getting off scot-free, well, they already faced their round of tariffs the previous month, where they faced a whole bunch of tariffs, which I'm not going to get into because, well, it's got nothing related to cameras. And I know all this sounds a little bit complicated, so perhaps this business case will help. In 2018, the United States placed tariffs on washing machines, and the whole point of this was to bring back lost manufacturing jobs. And according to a report done by Aaron Flahan, the impact of tariffs led to increased prices for consumers. The impact of tariffs led to increased prices for consumers and influenced pricing strategies, not just domestically, but also in Canada. And those tariffs were only applied to washing machines, not dryers. However, something strange happened. At Best Buy and other retailers across the United States, when the prices increased on washing machines due to the tariffs, a similar price increase percentage-wise also was applied to dryers, even though they weren't covered by tariffs. And something interesting also happened in Canada, which is a completely different market with a different set of regulations. The prices of their washing machines and dryers, well, they also went up. But with Europe and Asia facing a baseline tariff of 10%, who's to say what impact that's going to have in those countries? And I know what you're thinking, but those tariffs are applied to products coming into the United States. They don't affect Europe. Well, they don't at this point. Because when the United States decided to put in that 30-day reprieve, that's basically a hold. It doesn't stop those tariffs from coming into place. And yes, I get it. There's negotiations taking place. But, and this is the interesting part here, we don't know what each European country is going to do, or Asian country. They might decide at the end of 90 days, if those tariffs stay in place even in a small amount, well, guess what? They're going to decide to put in tariffs of their own. And what this does, even if it's not just applied, as we saw with the case study, to washing machines, it also impacts other related products. And because we're seeing, like, we haven't seen anything like this in, oh geez, I don't know, going back to maybe the early 20th century, this is a blanket baseline tariff of 10% that's basically going on every single country, with the exception, again, of Canada and the United States, or sorry, Canada and Mexico. And guess what they got? Well, they got tariffs on other products and stuff that wasn't covered by the USMCA agreement. And there is discussions right now about changing those things. And all this, again, is breeding uncertainty. So with all this going on, we could potentially see price increases in Europe and Asia, but I would expect that we probably won't see big in prices, if any, until we get to that 90-day period or the end of the 90-day period. I know there's an awful lot of uncertainty here, but when it comes to Canada and the United States, oh yeah, prices are going to go up before the end of the month. And I know what some of you are thinking. It's time to leave Canon, right? Look what Canon's doing to us. They're raising prices. Well, folks, Nikon, Sony, Panasonic, Fujifilm, Pentax, they're all Japanese companies. So if you think that these prices aren't going to be, these tariffs aren't going to apply to those cameras either, well, think again. Canon might be the first to raise their prices, but they won't be alone. Nikon, Sony, Panasonic, and Fujifilm, they're not going to absorb a 10% tariff. Like Canon, they're also going to pass them on. And there's another point here that I hate to bring up, but even for those cameras and lenses that are all made in Japan, and I'll pick on Sigma for a moment, that also makes cameras and lenses, all headquartered in the same facility, the same campus, well, even their cameras and lenses that are made there are using various components that are supplied globally and including in China. And this is one of the challenges for the Japanese camera market, is that over the past 30 years, a lot of those components have, well, been produced in China and all in the same sort of locale. So it's easy to get those components and put them into the products. China's gotten so good at it, and they've built up a large workforce, that it's going to be hard to easily take those components that were made in China and move them into the United States or other countries. So there are an awful lot of challenges. So even, and this is what we don't know at this point, because we'd have to see some reports. As those tariffs are being applied to Canon, Nikon, Sony, Panasonic, Fujifilm, etc., are they going to take a look at these cameras and say, okay, you know what, there's probably 10% components made from China, so let's go ahead and add a 145% tariff to those. These components are from Vietnam or wherever. Well, those are delayed, so we're just going to apply a 10% baseline tariff, and whatever components are made in China, we're going to apply that tariff. And that's assuming that, well, the United States doesn't respond to China's recent tariff increase on the reciprocal tariff, and then that the United States doesn't. Again, you see where this could potentially go. So it's very, very hard for us to determine where the prices are going long term, other than they're definitely going up. And we're going to see that happen in the United States first. We're going to see that happen in the Americas. And then depending on what happens with this 90-day reprieve, we can see the prices go up globally. Which is why, once again, I bring your attention to what's currently on sale. The Canon EOS R5, the Mark I, $29.99. It gets a free battery grip at B&H. The R5 Mark II, $39.99, and it also gets a free battery grip at B&H. But then we have other cameras. The Canon EOS R50, $100 off at $579. The R8, $12.99, as well as the Canon EOS R. And the RP is $7.99. And as I said at the beginning of this video, if you use the links that I have down in the description for pretty well every one of these cameras, I do get a small commission back of anywhere from 2 to 5%. And that's what really keeps the lights on. It keeps this channel going. So a big thanks to those of you that do pre-order or just order the products that I have linked down below. And if you click on any of those links and decide to purchase something else, I also get credit for that. But the key thing here is not my commission and keeping the channel going. It's looking at your business and what you're looking at purchasing. If you're waiting to see if this blows over and get things at a lower price, and something like the R5 Mark II over the next couple of years will eventually go down in price. But I want you to think back to 2020 and how prices were largely stable and quite low. And then because of that incident, prices shot right up and they're not coming down. I think we're seeing a very similar, market, what's the word? Not conflagration, I think we're seeing something very similar. Let's use some interesting words. I don't think we're going to see prices really come down all that much. And if this thing really ramps up, I mean, after 90 days, the reciprocal tariffs come on, and then Europe and Asia retaliate, and then the United States retaliates again. What we could see here is a really big mess, and we could see not only prices going up and shocking us for cameras, lenses, and accessories, including storage products such as SSDs and hard drives, we could potentially see some companies go out of business, and it's not something I would like to see. So at this point, again, the purpose of this video is, if you're purchasing in the United States, expect prices to go up before the end of this month. The Americas, you can also expect prices to go up, although it may vary from country to country. There is one more variable that could have an impact on what you pay, and that's the foreign exchange rate. What I've noticed here in Canada over the past, I guess it's a week now since April the 5th, since the bond market has been, well, since the problems with the bond market, we've seen the US dollar, well, I won't use the term crash, but really come down quite a bit. And that's seen the Canadian dollar go up between 4 to 5 cents. So that does help soften the blow of any potential increase. Same with Colombia, same with Mexico, same with Brazil, with your real. Currency impacts are going to have an impact, but I don't know what to expect. I'm neither pessimistic or optimistic here. I just want to inform you that prices are going up. US hit first, the Americas, but Europe and Asia, if you see something on sale and it's something you've been looking at getting for a while, get it. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. I've gone through my inventory and looked at things I want to buy, and right now, you know what? I'm good. There's a few other things I could buy, but I'm choosing to just kind of wait, see what happens, and have enough money there for my business for growth in the future, because I don't know how this is going to impact this business as well as my day job. But I do want to say thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in, for using my affiliate links for both Adorama, B&H, and Amazon.com. It really does help keep the lights on. I very much appreciate it. And one thing, you might want to consider taking a look at my membership levels. By clicking join, you don't pay anything, but it'll show you the different membership levels. I've got a new one called the Insider. And what this allows you to do is go behind the scenes to see what my studios look like, both Studio A and Studio B, where I do the live streams. And I take you behind the scenes, often just shooting with my iPhone, giving you very raw footage, and it could be when I'm testing new gear. So if you're interested, check out those membership levels, and if not, that's fine too. I get it. This is a news channel for you. This is where you come for fun, and that's fine. But for the 1% of the 1% that wants to get a little bit more information, take a look at the membership levels. There's definitely some options that you might be interested in. But that's it for now. I don't think that's it for a while, but Easter is coming. So after Wednesday, we might get a little bit of a reprieve on news. It won't be a lot of stuff coming out till next week, but we are expecting some announcements. I don't know how everything that's going on in the world right now, these tariff negotiations are going to have an impact on things, but I know they are. It could delay some things. The Mavic 4 Pro was due to be announced on the 24th. I haven't heard otherwise at this point, although more and more noise is starting to say May. No idea what date in May, but May is looking certain. And of course, we have the Canon EOS R6 Mark III. Haven't heard anything. I'm reaching out to some of my sources to see if they can find the pulse of what's going on here, because if it is supposed to be happening in April, we should have heard something by now. So I'm not expecting April. And again, if we're supposed to get something in May, it's just next month now, 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away. Well, then I'd expect we start to get some leaks very, very soon. I hope the R6 Mark III isn't getting delayed until late summer, but you never know. Anyhow, thank you so much for tuning in. Have yourself a great day. Just checking to see if it's still recording. These are some of the things that go on in my head as I'm recording, looking at the lens, talking directly to you, thinking of what I've got here on the script and everything else. My mind, sometimes shiny objects just start going off in the distance. Anyhow, thank you so much for tuning in. Have yourself a great day, and we'll see you again soon.